I never imagined the word bride could ever be used to describe me. Even now, when I look back, it feels like I'm watching someone else's life unfold, yet I can still feel the heartbeat, the trembling hands, the disbelief that it was all happening to me. It started with the mirror. Just a simple mirror in a quiet room, my reflection staring back, uncertain, soft, and afraid. My hair was a mess of half-grown strands, my shoulders still too broad, my jaw still too sharp, but there was something fragile in my eyes that day, something shifting. I had just moved in with my cousin Maya after my parents left the country. She was a stylist, confident, bold, the kind of woman who could walk into any room and instantly become the center of gravity. I, on the other hand, was quiet, awkward, and constantly hiding behind oversized hoodies. "Ryan," she said that first morning, standing behind me with a curling iron in her hand, "you've got such a delicate face. It's like it's trying to say something you keep silencing." I laughed it off. "You mean I look weird?" "No," she smiled, brushing my hair aside. "I mean you look like someone who hasn't been allowed to exist yet." That line stayed with me. Someone who hasn't been allowed to exist yet. It was strange how it felt more like truth than compliment. A week later, she asked me to help her at her salon. Just sweep floors, wash brushes, fold towels. I didn't mind. But every day I was surrounded by women, their laughter, their perfume, their confidence, and every day I felt this pull, like gravity, was shifting in my chest. One slow evening, Maya turned to me and said, "You ever wonder what it's like to be on the other side of the mirror?" I frowned. "What do you mean?" She smiled in that way she does when she's about to test you. "Let me show you." Before I could argue, she sat me in a chair and started applying foundation to my face. I froze, heart racing, wanting to stop her. But something inside me whispered don't. The brush moved in slow, precise strokes, the smell of powder soft and faintly sweet. My reflection blurred under layers of color until I barely recognized the person staring back. Then came the wig, long, auburn and wavy. Then the lashes. The lip tint. When she was done, she turned the chair around. I saw myself, not Ryan, but someone else. Softer. Kinder. Vulnerable. Maya tilted her head. "So? What's her name?" I didn't answer. I couldn't. My throat was too tight, my mind spinning. But for the first time, I didn't feel like I was pretending. I felt like I was found. The next day, I avoided the mirror. But that reflection lingered. Her eyes, her lips, her quiet fear. And then the envelope arrived. A letter addressed to Maya from a fashion institute she worked with. They needed a model, someone petite, with delicate features, for a bridal training program. Maya read it, then looked at me, eyes narrowing as if fate itself had delivered the envelope to her door. "What?" I asked nervously. Her grin widened. "You wanted to know what it feels like to be on the other side of the mirror. Well, sweetheart, maybe it's time you found out." And that was the moment my heart stopped. I didn't know that single sentence would change everything. My body, my name, my entire sense of self. I didn't know that by the end of it all, I'd be standing in front of a mirror again, wearing white, trembling, and realizing that I wasn't pretending anymore. I laughed at first. I thought Maya was joking, a playful tease to make me blush and squirm. But she wasn't. Her smile had that sharp, knowing edge, the kind that said she had already made up her mind. "Maya, come on," I protested, trying to sound calm. "They're asking for a female model." "I can't." "You can," she interrupted. "You forget, I make people into whoever they want to be every single day. Hair, skin, shape, all illusion, all art. You'd be perfect." Her certainty frightened me. I'd always admired her confidence, but this time it felt dangerous. Like she saw something in me I wasn't ready to face. "I don't even look like." "Like what?" she said softly, leaning forward. "Like a girl? Because yesterday you did. You looked beautiful." That word again. Beautiful. It hit differently this time. Not like a compliment, but a truth my reflection had whispered and I'd ignored. Still, I shook my head. "No one's going to believe it."
She smirked.
Then let's make them. That night, she transformed her small apartment into a studio. Lights, mirrors, makeup kits, even a sewing machine. It looked like a secret workshop, and in a way, that's exactly what it became. Over the next few days, Maya worked on me with quiet precision. My hair was trimmed and styled to frame my face. My eyebrows reshaped, my skin treated with gentle care. She even adjusted my posture. Shoulders down, chin up, let your movement speak for itself. It felt unreal, like I was playing a role, but somehow the role was revealing me. Each time I caught my reflection, I paused a little longer. I watched the shape of my lips when I smiled. I noticed how my voice softened when I relaxed. I started experimenting, standing differently, walking differently, and Maya encouraged every step. Then came the clothes. The first outfit she showed me was a white silk slip, light, delicate, almost translucent. I hesitated to touch it. "You'll need to get used to fabrics like this," she said. "The bridal program's all about elegance and presence. They'll want you to look and move like perfection itself." I swallowed hard. "Maya, why are you doing this?" She looked at me through the mirror, expression unreadable. "Because I think this is who you've always been. You just needed someone to give you permission." I didn't know how to respond. The day of the audition came faster than I expected. I sat in the salon chair while she worked in silence, powdering, blending, brushing, until my face was once again that soft, unfamiliar reflection I both dreaded and longed to see. "You ready, darling?" she asked, her tone teasing but kind. I stared at myself, the girl in the mirror, her lips trembling, her eyes wide with something between fear and excitement. "I think so," I whispered. At the institute, the room was bright and cold. I walked in among tall girls with perfect figures, all in various stages of fitting and posing. I felt like an imposter, every heartbeat a countdown to being found out. When it was my turn, I stepped forward, trying to hold the grace Maya had drilled into me. One of the directors tilted her head. "You're new, aren't you? What's your name?" I froze. My name. I hadn't thought about that. Maya's words echoed in my mind. What's her name? My lips parted before I could think. Riley. The woman smiled faintly. Pretty name. Step forward, Riley. And somehow, the world didn't shatter. No one questioned. No one doubted. For the first time, Riley existed, and no one seemed to notice. She wasn't supposed to. That night, back at home, Maya handed me a sealed envelope. I opened it with trembling hands. Congratulations, Riley. You've been accepted into the bridal training program. The room spun. I looked up at her in shock. Maya just grinned. Told you they'd believe it. But what I didn't know then was that this was only the beginning, that this training program would take me further than I ever thought possible, blurring every line between who I was and who I was becoming. And soon, the changes would stop being just makeup and clothes. They would become real. The next morning, I woke up with the envelope still on my nightstand, its edges slightly crumpled from how many times I'd held it, opened it, reread it, and wondered if it was all some strange dream. Bride in training. The words felt both ridiculous and poetic. I didn't belong there, and yet somewhere deep inside, a quiet part of me whispered that maybe I did. Maya was already up, humming softly as she brewed coffee. You didn't sleep, did you? She said without turning around. I shook my head. How could I? I'm going to be surrounded by actual women. They'll know I don't belong. She turned, her eyes calm and steady. Riley, belonging isn't something people give you. It's something you decide. That morning, she handed me a pale pink folder, my schedule, notes, guidelines for the program. Inside was a checklist that made my stomach twist. Etiquette, posture, voice, emotional presentation, bridal confidence. Bridal confidence, I muttered under my breath. Whatever that means. Maya smiled knowingly. You'll find out soon enough. The Institute's training center was like stepping into a movie set. Elegant halls lined with mirrors, polished floors that echoed with heels, and walls hung with flowing white gowns that shimmered like clouds. Everyone moved with an ease I didn't have, each girl a living vision of grace. As I stepped in, my nerves nearly paralyzed me. My reflection in the mirror caught my attention. Soft curls, light makeup, a pastel dress Maya had picked for me. I tried to smile at the girl in the glass, but it came out uncertain. Then a voice beside me said, "You're new, aren't you?" I turned to see a tall brunette with a playful grin. "I'm Lila," she said. "You look like you're about to faint." "I might," I admitted. She laughed and looped her arm through mine. "Don't. They love nervous beginners. It means you care." Her warmth settled my panic a little. We found seats together, and I listened as the program director, a refined woman named Ms. Hale, spoke about the meaning of their training. "This isn't just about appearance," she said. "It's about presence. A bride isn't defined by her gown. She's defined by how she carries herself, how she breathes, how she believes she's worthy of beauty." Those words sank deep into me. Worthy of beauty. I had never thought of beauty as something I could be worthy of. It had always been something distant, fragile, belonging to others. After class, Lila and I practiced walking graceful, poised, patient. Every step was a struggle, but every stumble came with laughter. I began to relax, to forget how terrified I was of being found out. Later, as the sun dipped low, I found myself alone in front of one of the full-length mirrors. The soft light turned the glass golden, and I saw Riley again. Not the nervous boy pretending, but a girl trying to understand her own reflection. And for the first time, I didn't flinch. Maya picked me up after class, watching me climb into the car with a tired but radiant smile. "You're glowing," she said. "How was your first day?" I hesitated, thinking. "Strange," I said honestly. "But good strange. Like I was supposed to be there." She nodded, as if she had known that all along. When we got home, I stood in front of the mirror once more. My hair was messy now, my lipstick smudged, but I couldn't stop staring. That night, as I lay in bed, I whispered quietly into the dark, "Maybe this isn't pretending anymore." The following week passed in a blur of lessons, fabrics, and mirrors. Every day felt like walking a tightrope. One part of me terrified someone would see through the illusion, another part thrilled by how natural it all was starting to feel. Maya began calling me Riley full-time, even at home. At first, it made me jump like she was calling someone else. But slowly, the name stopped feeling foreign. It fit, softly, like a secret I'd always carried but never dared to say aloud. At the Institute, Ms. Hale's lessons grew more intense. She taught us how to enter a room without demanding attention, yet still owning the space. "A bride," she said one morning, pacing with quiet authority, "doesn't perform beauty. She is beauty because she accepts herself fully." Her words echoed in my chest long after class ended. Lila noticed my silence as we walked down the hallway. "You get really quiet after Hale talks," she teased. "I just think a lot," I said, "about who I'm supposed to be." She nudged my shoulder. "You don't have to be anyone. Just be who feels right." That night, I stood in front of the mirror again, running my fingers over the dress Maya had lent me for practice. The fabric shimmered faintly under the light, and for a second, I saw myself, not as someone pretending to be delicate, but as someone who already was. Then, without warning, a knock echoed on the door. It was Maya. "You okay?" she asked softly. "Yeah," I said, though my throat felt tight. I don't know who I am anymore." She leaned against the frame, folding her arms. "That's not a bad thing, Riley. It means you're finally looking." I turned back to the mirror, the reflection of my eyes glassy and uncertain. What if this isn't me? What if I'm just lost in something temporary? She stepped closer and placed a gentle hand on my shoulder. "Maybe. Or maybe it's you discovering what was buried under everything you were told to be." Her voice was calm, grounding. For the first time in weeks, I felt seen, not for how I looked, but for how confused and alive I felt inside. Over the next few days, something shifted. I stopped worrying about being found out. I started laughing more with Lila, experimenting with new hairstyles Maya taught me, and carrying myself with a quiet sense of peace. But the more comfortable I became, the more I noticed the tension in others, subtle looks, whispered comments from a few classmates who didn't quite understand why I was different. One afternoon, during a dress-fitting session, a girl named Serena glanced at me and said, "You're brave, you know. Walking in here like you belong." Her tone was strange, not cruel, not kind, just honest. I smiled nervously. "Do I?" She met my eyes. "You do now." That night, lying in bed, I thought about those words. You do now. I realized I wasn't chasing an identity anymore. I was learning to live one. And though I didn't know where this would end, whether I'd ever stand in an actual gown, under real lights, in front of real people, one thing was certain. Riley was no longer a mask. She was becoming me. The announcement came unexpectedly, a crisp sheet of paper pinned to the Institute's main board. Bridal showcase rehearsal. All participants to prepare presentation by next week. When I read it, my stomach dropped. The showcase was the Institute's signature event, a semi-public presentation where trainees demonstrated what they'd learned. It wasn't just about poise or dress. It was about embodying a story, the essence of transformation and confidence. Lila squealed beside me, gripping my arm. "Can you believe it? We actually get to perform." I tried to smile, but my pulse thundered in my ears. "Perform?" I repeated faintly, as though the word itself were heavier than I could carry. That night, I told Maya over dinner. She grinned like she'd been waiting for this moment. "This is your chance, Riley," she said, her tone serious, but full of warmth. "It's not about convincing anyone. It's about claiming yourself." "I'm not sure I can do it," I admitted quietly. "When people watch me, I freeze. It's like they're all waiting for me to slip up, to prove I don't belong." Maya reached across the table, resting her hand over mine. "You've already proven the opposite. Remember that first day in the salon mirror? You didn't see her at first, but she was there. She always was." That night, I couldn't sleep. I sat up in bed staring at the moonlight stretching across my blanket. I thought about all the mirrors I'd faced these past few weeks. Every reflection slowly changing, not because of makeup or clothes, but because my eyes finally saw something worth believing in. Still, fear lingered. What if the illusion shattered the moment I stepped under real lights? The next day, Ms. Hale gathered everyone in the studio. Her posture was perfect, her voice cool and measured. "Each of you will walk once across the stage," she said. "You will represent what it means to be your own version of grace. Forget the idea of imitation. We want truth." Truth. The word caught in my throat. After class, I lingered behind while the others left. I watched Ms. Hale adjust the drape of a gown on a mannequin, slow, deliberate, reverent. "Ms. Hale," I said softly. She turned, one eyebrow raised. "I'm not sure I belong here," I confessed before I could stop myself. Her eyes softened. "What makes you say that?" "Because," I hesitated, searching for words. "Because I'm not like the others. I didn't grow up dreaming of this. I didn't even know who I was supposed to be until a few weeks ago." She studied me for a long, thoughtful moment. Then, gently, she said, "Riley, everyone who walks into this building is unfinished. That's why we're here, to give form to what's been hiding. Belonging isn't about where you came from. It's about whether you're brave enough to show up." Her words stayed with me. For the next several days, I practiced every moment I could, walking, breathing, smiling. Maya helped me after work, adjusting my stance, teaching me to let the emotion, not fear, guide each step. "Don't think about how you look," she told me. "Think about what you feel. People see that more than makeup ever could." Lila was a constant source of laughter and encouragement. She nicknamed us the Mirror Girls and reminded me to breathe whenever I tensed up. But on the morning of the showcase, my nerves returned full force. The auditorium was filled with soft murmurs, cameras, and rows of expectant faces. The stage lights blazed, spilling warmth across the polished runway. I stood backstage, heart hammering so loudly I could feel it in my fingertips. Ms. Hale walked by, giving me a brief, approving nod. "Remember, don't walk like you're becoming something. Walk like you already are. And then it was my turn. I stepped forward. The first light hit me, blinding, golden, almost surreal. My breath caught. My heels clicked softly against the floor. Each step felt deliberate, heavier and lighter at once. I tried to remember every lesson, every late-night talk, every reflection that had looked back at me with uncertainty. Then, halfway down the runway, I did something unexpected. I looked up. I let myself see the audience, really see them, and I smiled. Not because I was trying to, but because I felt it. The fear didn't vanish, but it changed shape, melting into something deeper, something like freedom. The dress flowed around me like a whisper of silk and courage. The world felt impossibly still. For a moment, I forgot about who I had been, about every doubt and label. I just was. When I reached the end of the runway, I turned slowly, catching my reflection in the mirrored backdrop behind the lights. And what I saw made my throat tighten. I didn't see a disguise.
I didn't see a mask.
I saw Riley, whole, trembling, radiant. When the applause began, it startled me. It wasn't thunderous, but it was warm, honest. I caught sight of Maya in the back row, clapping with tears in her eyes. After the show, Lila threw her arms around me backstage. "You were incredible," she said, laughing. "You looked like you were born for it." I wanted to tell her that I hadn't felt born for anything before this. That this was the first time I'd felt like I was standing in my own skin without wanting to hide. Later, as the crowd thinned and the noise faded, I stood alone in front of a backstage mirror. My lipstick was faintly smudged, my hair slightly undone, but the person staring back at me looked steady, calm in a way I'd never seen before. I whispered to my reflection, voice trembling. I didn't pretend this time. And deep inside, I knew it was true. The days after the showcase were quieter than I expected, but they carried a weight I hadn't anticipated. Walking through the streets felt different somehow, almost surreal. Every reflection in shop windows made me pause, as if the world was asking me to confirm. Are you really here? At first, I avoided people's eyes. I kept my hoodie drawn tight, my steps measured, careful not to draw attention. But the memory of the runway lingered, the warmth of the lights, the feel of the dress flowing around me, the strange, steady heartbeat of confidence I hadn't known I could carry. Maya noticed my hesitation the moment I walked in that evening. "You're retreating," she said, gently but firmly. "You can't hide from yourself now." "I know," I admitted. "It's just the world feels so big." She smiled knowingly.
Big, yes.
"But it's also waiting. Waiting for you to step in fully, Riley. And that first step? It's terrifying for everyone." That weekend, she took me out to a small cafe. I wasn't used to being seen in public like this, not just for my appearance, but for me. Every glance from strangers felt loaded with curiosity, judgment, or indifference. But when I sat down across from Maya, her presence grounded me. "Look at them," she said quietly, nodding toward the cafe's patrons. "Most people barely notice. They're too busy with their own lives. And the ones who do, they'll adjust or they won't. That's their choice, not yours." Her words calmed something inside me I hadn't realized was tight with fear. Over the next week, I slowly began venturing further outside the institute. I walked to the corner store alone, then to the park, letting the air brush across my face, without flinching. Each step was tiny but monumental, a rehearsal of courage, a practice of self-acceptance. Lila called one afternoon, bubbling with excitement. "Guess what? The Institute is holding a practice event, semi-public, just for family and friends. You should come. You'll get more comfortable with being seen." I hesitated. The idea of more people noticing me, of more eyes studying me, made my chest tighten. But something inside whispered, "You survived the showcase. You can do this." When the day arrived, Maya walked me to the Institute. I was wearing a soft pastel dress, hair loosely curled, and a cardigan to keep me feeling grounded. Lila ran up, throwing her arms around me. "You look amazing," she exclaimed. I smiled nervously. "Thanks, I think." The small hall was already filling with parents and friends of other students. The room buzzed with quiet conversations and laughter. I could feel my heartbeat against my ribs, steady but anxious. Just walk like yesterday, Maya whispered.
Feel it.
Don't think about them. I nodded, trying to anchor myself in her words. When my turn came, I stepped forward. The room seemed brighter, sharper somehow. I could hear whispers, soft but constant, like a tide washing over me. I felt my knees shake. But then I remembered the mirror backstage, remembered the girl who had walked the runway with her head held high. And I walked. The soft click of my shoes against the floor felt like a drumbeat, counting each step. I kept my chin up, my shoulders steady, letting the small applause ripple over me without trying to analyze it. The faces around me blurred. They were background scenery. The real audience was me, watching myself discover confidence I didn't know I had. By the time I reached the end, I realized I wasn't trembling. My steps were lighter now, as if some invisible weight had lifted. The applause that followed was small but genuine, and I caught Maya's eyes in the back, her smile proud and unwavering. Afterward, as I walked out of the hall, a young woman from the institute stopped me. "You're Riley, right?" she said, tentative. I wanted to say that watching you walk, it inspired me. I've been so nervous about this program, but seeing you, I feel like I can do it too. Her words struck me harder than I expected. For a moment, I forgot about my fear, my doubts, the endless what-ifs. I just felt seen. Truly seen. That night, lying in bed, I realized something profound. Being accepted by others wasn't what mattered. What mattered was seeing myself, the real me, and being brave enough to let the world notice. I didn't know what tomorrow would bring, or if the confidence I felt tonight would hold. But for the first time, I didn't worry. I had started walking, and walking I knew was enough. Life after the showcase felt lighter, but it also carried a new kind of pressure I hadn't anticipated. For the first time, Riley wasn't just a name in the institute. She was a presence, someone people noticed, someone whose appearance and confidence invited attention. And that attention came with expectations. It started subtly. Small comments from classmates, a lingering glance from a stranger on the street, a friend from school asking why I'd been acting different. At first I laughed these off, told myself I was imagining things. But the more I noticed, the more I realized I was standing on a precipice, a cliff between who I had been and who I wanted to become. One afternoon, Maya suggested we go to the mall. "It's time to practice the world outside the institute," she said, her tone gentle but firm. I groaned. The mall? Seriously? People there stare at everything. "That's the point," she replied with a sly grin. "It's crowded, unpredictable, perfect for learning to trust yourself." Reluctantly, I agreed. The first hour was manageable, browsing through shops, testing my reflection in glass doors, practicing casual smiles at strangers. I could feel the tension loosening in my shoulders, the rigid fear melting into cautious confidence. And then it happened. A group of teenagers, loud and brash, barreled down the corridor. One of them smirked and said, "Hey, is that a boy or a girl?" The words sliced through me like a cold wind. My heart slammed in my chest, my stomach twisting into knots. For a fleeting moment, I wanted nothing more than to vanish, to shrink back into the hoodie I'd worn months ago. Maya's hand found mine immediately. "Ignore them," she said softly, her fingers firm and grounding. "They don't define you." I forced a shaky breath, trying to steady my trembling legs. But then one of the teenagers laughed, louder this time, and I felt a flare of panic. My mind raced. Do I answer? Do I run? What if they're right? What if I don't belong here? Then something inside me shifted. A quiet, insistent voice whispered, "You've walked runways. You've faced audiences. You are Riley. You belong." I straightened my back, lifted my chin, and I smiled. Not the nervous, unsure smile that had hidden behind mirrors and makeup, but a small, resolute smile. The one I had learned in the institute, in front of lights and applause, in front of mirrors, in front of myself. "Why don't you try asking me again?" I said, voice steady, calm. The teenagers blinked. Their smirk faltered. One of them shrugged awkwardly, muttering something under his breath, and they moved on, leaving me standing taller than I had in years. Maya squeezed my hand.
See?
That wasn't fear. That was power. The rest of the day was a blur of small victories. I spoke to a cashier without looking away, laughed at a stranger's accidental joke, navigated a crowded food court without feeling like I was shrinking. Each step, each interaction, was a quiet triumph, a rehearsal for the life I was slowly learning to inhabit. That evening, back in the safety of Maya's apartment, I collapsed on the couch. My muscles were sore, my mind buzzing, my heart still racing, but there was a glow there, a light I hadn't known before. "You did well today," Maya said, sliding beside me. "More than well. You faced the world, Riley, and you didn't hide." I thought about the day, about fear, about the stairs, about the small but defiant act of standing my ground. And for the first time, I realized something profound. Confidence wasn't about perfection. It wasn't about being admired or accepted. It was about presence, about showing up, in every sense of the word, even when the world tried to unsettle you. Days turned into weeks, and Riley began to grow accustomed to the subtle rhythms of this new life. Morning walks where she held her head high, quiet conversations at cafes, moments of laughter with Lila that felt lighter than air. But the world outside still held challenges. One evening, a familiar face from school spotted me at a park, far from the institute. Her eyes widened, her mouth forming a small gasp. "Riley, is that you?" My heart thumped. Old fears, old insecurities, rushed in like a tide. I could feel the urge to shrink away, to disappear. But then I remembered the mall incident, the showcase, the countless mirrors and lessons. "Yes," I said simply, calm, almost casual. "It's me." She hesitated, a mix of surprise and curiosity on her face. Then she smiled, hesitantly. "Wow, you look happy." And in that small acknowledgement, I felt something shift again. Riley wasn't just existing in the institute or in front of an audience. She was living, moving, interacting, slowly but surely claiming the space that had once felt forbidden. That night, as I lay in bed reflecting, I understood the truth. Transformation wasn't about escaping fear. It was about facing it over and over, and choosing yourself each time. The journey was far from over. I knew more challenges would come, whispers, questions, moments when the past might reach to pull me back. But I also knew that the Riley who had walked that runway, who had stood in front of mirrors and faced strangers, had discovered a strength she didn't know existed. And now, the world could see her too. The next challenge arrived unexpectedly. It wasn't a showcase or a runway. It was a dinner invitation. One of Lila's classmates, a friendly and outgoing girl named Sophie, had invited a few of us to her home for a casual get-together. At first, I had tried to decline. Social situations always felt like a minefield. One wrong move, one misplaced word, and all the progress I'd made could crumble. But Lila's insistence and Maya's encouragement won out. "You're not pretending," Lila said, grinning. "You're Riley. Just show up and be yourself. That's more than enough." So I went. The house was warm, filled with the smell of baked bread and soft music playing in the background. A few familiar faces from the institute were there, chatting and laughing. But there were also new faces, friends of friends, strangers who didn't know anything about me, about Riley, about the weeks I had spent learning to inhabit my own skin. Almost immediately, I felt the old anxiety rise. My chest tightened, my hands tingled. Each glance, each laugh, each casual movement of someone across the room felt magnified. Sophie came over, smiling warmly. "Hey, Riley. So glad you made it." "Thanks," I said softly, trying to keep my voice steady. The night began in bursts of nervous conversation. I laughed at jokes, responded to questions, and tried to move naturally. But inside, a storm raged. Every small gesture was overanalyzed, every pause a possible mistake. Then came the moment I'd feared most. A group of girls clustered near the kitchen table, talking quietly but noticeably glancing in my direction. One of them, a tall girl with sharp eyes, leaned over and whispered something I couldn't fully hear. But the tone was unmistakable: judgment, curiosity, disbelief. I froze, feeling my old insecurities clawing at the edges of my mind. The urge to disappear, to retreat, to revert to the hoodie-wrapped boy who had walked timidly through life, surged. But then I remembered every step I had taken: the mall, the runway, the showcase, the first confident walks in the park. I remembered Maya's words: belonging isn't about them. It's about whether you're brave enough to show up. I took a deep breath. 1,
2,
3, and I walked forward. I joined the group with a smile, keeping my posture upright, my voice calm. I introduced myself to each person, answered questions honestly, laughed when appropriate. The tall girl's smirk didn't vanish completely, but it softened. By the time the night wore on, conversation flowed naturally. I wasn't invisible, but neither was I shrinking. At one point, Sophie pulled me aside. "Riley," she said quietly, "you handled that so well. I don't think I could have done it in my first week." I nodded, swallowing the lump in my throat. "I'm learning," I admitted. The real turning point came later, when everyone moved to the living room to play a group game. We sat in a circle, laughter echoing off the walls. Someone suggested a truth or dare round. My stomach flipped. I hated the idea of revealing too much about myself, of being put on the spot. But I stayed. I didn't shy away. When my turn came, Sophie smiled warmly. "Truth or dare?" "Truth," I said, surprising even myself. Her eyes sparkled with curiosity. "What's something about yourself most people wouldn't guess?" I hesitated. The answer hovered on the edge of my lips. For years, I had hidden who I was, who I wanted to be, what I felt inside. And now, sitting in a cozy living room surrounded by strangers who could easily judge me, I realized something. Hiding had never made me stronger. I took a breath. I'm learning to live as someone I didn't know I could be," I said slowly. "I'm figuring out who I am, and it's been hard, but also amazing." The room went quiet for a heartbeat. Then, one by one, smiles spread. Sophie reached over and squeezed my hand gently. "That's beautiful," she said. And in that moment, I understood a truth deeper than any mirror lesson, runway, or applause could teach. Courage wasn't about perfection. It wasn't about avoiding fear or judgment. It was about choosing yourself, even when others might not understand. By the time I left that night, my heart felt light in a way it hadn't before. I walked home under the soft glow of streetlights, the cool night air brushing against my face, and I realized I was no longer just practicing being Riley. I was becoming Riley fully, unflinchingly, and on my own terms. That night, lying in bed, I whispered into the quiet, almost like a promise to myself. I will not shrink. I will not hide. I will be who I am, and I will walk through the world with this heart, even if it trembles. And somewhere deep inside, I knew that this was only the beginning of the real journey, the journey beyond the institute, beyond the mirrors, beyond every expectation I'd ever held or been forced to hold. Because Riley wasn't just a name anymore. She was a story unfolding. It started with an invitation I almost didn't accept. The Bridal Institute had organized a community showcase, a small, local event where trainees would demonstrate their skills to an audience of neighbors, local business owners, and media representatives. It wasn't the Institute stage, and it wasn't just friends and classmates this time. The thought made my stomach twist. The mall, the park, even the small dinner party, all of those had been steps. But this felt like standing on the edge of a cliff and being told to leap. Maya noticed my hesitation immediately. "You've done the showcases," she said, placing a firm hand on my shoulder. "This is just another audience. Remember, Riley, it's not about them. It's about you. Always you." I wanted to believe her, but doubt gnawed at the edges of my mind. What if someone recognizes me from school? What if they laugh? What if I falter? The day arrived faster than I expected. The community hall buzzed with quiet conversations, the murmur of chairs scraping across polished floors, the soft hum of nervous energy. I felt my pulse hammering in my ears as I waited backstage. Lila appeared, practically bouncing on her heels. "You're going to crush it, Riley," she said, throwing an arm around me. Her enthusiasm was infectious, but it also made the reality hit harder. This was real. This was public. I adjusted my dress, checked my posture, and breathed deeply. My reflection in the mirror was familiar now, soft curls framing my face, lips tinted, eyes steady. But the reflection was more than just appearances. It was me, standing on the threshold of fear and courage at the same time. When my turn came, I stepped onto the small stage. The room fell silent. My heels clicked softly, echoing across the hall. I felt every gaze, every expectation, every subtle judgment pressing against me. Halfway through the walk, a gasp from the audience startled me. I froze. Someone, a girl from my old school, had recognized me. Her eyes widened in surprise. Whispers followed, spreading like wildfire. I could feel every heartbeat, every doubt, crawling up my spine. For a moment, I wanted to run.
To hide.
To vanish back into the hoodie-wrapped boy I had been for years. But then I remembered every lesson, every mirror, every runway, every night I had faced fear and chosen myself. I remembered them all, the park, the dinner party, every step I had taken when the world might have judged me. I straightened my back,
Lifted my chin.
and I kept walking. This time, I let myself feel the confidence instead of pretending it. Each step became a rhythm, each movement a statement. I was present, alive, and unwilling to shrink. I met the eyes of strangers in the front row and let a small, natural smile spread across my face. By the time I reached the end of the stage, the whispers had faded, replaced by applause. Not the polite, obligatory kind, but genuine, warm claps of acknowledgement. I caught Maya's eyes in the back. She nodded once, her expression fierce and proud. Backstage, Lila enveloped me in a hug. "You were incredible," she whispered. "You didn't just walk, you owned it." I leaned against the wall, chest heaving, mind buzzing. For the first time, I didn't just feel like Riley in a room full of mirrors. I felt like Riley in the world, and the world hadn't broken me. Later, as the event wrapped up, I walked outside into the evening air. The sun was low, casting golden light across the streets. I breathed deeply, feeling the wind against my face, feeling my heart finally slow. I thought about all the times I had been afraid, all the moments I had hidden, all the mirrors I had stared into wondering if I belonged. And I realized something profound. Belonging isn't given. It's claimed, step by step, choice by choice, by showing up as yourself even when the world seems ready to doubt you. That night, lying in bed, I whispered again to the quiet, "I am Riley. I belong. And I will keep walking." For the first time, I wasn't afraid of the next challenge. I was ready to meet it, because the real transformation wasn't about dresses, mirrors, or applause. It was about courage. It was about acceptance. It was about being unapologetically, fully me. The morning after the community showcase, I woke up with a strange sense of calm. My body was tired, my muscles sore from the tension of heels and posture, but my mind felt light, unburdened. For the first time in weeks, I didn't wake up questioning myself, wondering if I was fooling the world, or worse, myself. Maya was already in the kitchen, humming softly as she prepared breakfast. When she saw me, she smiled knowingly. "You slept well?" I nodded. "Better than I have in a long time." She placed a warm cup of tea in front of me.
Good.
"You earned it." I sipped quietly, feeling the warmth spread through me, the quiet acknowledgement of all I had faced and survived. Over the next few days, life settled into a rhythm I hadn't expected, one that was steady, affirming, and full of small victories. I walked to the park without hesitation, met classmates for coffee, and even visited a bookstore alone. Each step felt like an affirmation. I exist. I am Riley. I belong. But the most important change was internal. I began to see myself not as someone becoming, but as someone who already was. Every glance in a mirror, Every casual smile, every interaction was no longer a rehearsal or a test. It was simply living. One evening, Maya suggested we go for a walk. The streets were quiet, the sky painted with the soft purples and oranges of sunset. I felt a thrill of freedom in the cool air brushing against my cheeks. "Do you feel different?" she asked gently. I thought for a long moment, considering. "Yes," I said finally, "but not in the way I thought I would. I expected to feel like a new person, like I had to act a certain way. But it's more subtle. I feel like myself, finally. Like Riley isn't hiding anymore." She nodded, her eyes soft. "That's the goal. The world doesn't need you to change. You just need to let yourself be seen." And so I did. Weeks passed and the Institute continued its lessons, but I no longer saw them as tests. They were opportunities to refine grace, to explore creativity, to deepen confidence. Each session reinforced something I had discovered on the runway, in the park, at the dinner party, and at the community showcase. Identity isn't a costume to wear. It's a life to inhabit. One afternoon, while practicing a walk with Lila, she laughed and said, "You know, Riley, you've changed so much. Do you? And it feels effortless now." I smiled, feeling a warmth that went deeper than pride. I think it's because I stopped trying to please everyone else. I stopped pretending for mirrors or audiences. I just am. And in that moment, I realized that the journey wasn't about transformation in the way I had feared or imagined. It wasn't about applause, dresses, or how others saw me. It was about discovering Riley, not a version molded for anyone else, but the real me, confident, present, resilient, and alive. That evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon and the sky softened into twilight, I stood in front of my mirror one last time. I studied the girl looking back, her soft curls framing a face that had once been hesitant, unsure, and hidden. I whispered, softly, to the reflection, "You are enough. You have always been enough." And for the first time, I truly believed it. The journey wasn't over. Life would continue to challenge me, to test me, to push me in ways I couldn't yet imagine. But I knew now that I could face it all, because I had found something stronger than fear, stronger than doubt, stronger than expectation, the courage to be fully, unapologetically myself. Riley wasn't a story I was telling the world. Riley was my life. And finally she was free.